Hey everybody, what's happening? It's Reno here. I've been wanting to make this video, but as I can be with many things that I deem to be important, I can be a very good procrastinator. I can fall into the trap of trying to wait until something is the exact right time or the perfect situation, or just pretty much waiting until I feel like there's no other option. Um, but the importance of this video and what it means to me was a bit more important than me making sure that I had the right situation, the right lighting, the right environment. And so I'm just going ahead and making this video, and we'll see what it turns into. The important part to me is that it just gets made, because what I want to talk about is something that is not necessarily my favorite topic or anything that's super exciting that I want to share and that sort of thing. But it's a topic that I feel affects more than just me, and that topic is burnout. And similar to when I got sober back in 2013, what I thought was a negative experience at first, as far as having to deal with recovery and figuring out new ways to live and that sort of thing, wound up being my biggest blessing. And part of the reason for that is because it gave me an opportunity to have walked through something, experienced it, and then had that experience to share with other people. And what I found in that process is that although not everybody is going to be able to relate to the things that I go through, the things that I've went through, my perspective, the fact that there's a handful of people that might grasp one small thing out of the things that I discuss makes a difference. And if it can have one possible positive aspect on somebody's journey, or help them get through a difficult situation, get over a couple of hurdles in order to propel them into being into a better place, then I feel like everything that I've gone through is even more worth it. This is unscripted. This is just purely off the top of my mind. A couple notes just to make sure that I touch on some things that I feel are important. But for the most part, the main thing that I want to be clear about in this is that in no way am I blaming any of my previous employers, any of the situations that I was in. Um, Although the environments that you can find yourself in are obviously a factor when it comes to burnout. You can't necessarily be burned out if you're not in a work environment, if that's the type of burnout that we're dealing with. But what I'm talking about is the decisions that I've made, the things that I've had to go through. We all have choices, and sometimes when you're in a situation where you're getting to that point, um, a lot of times if you're neck deep in it, it's a lot harder to see what the possibilities are, what your options are, uh, or unless you're actually witnessing it with somebody else, it's hard to see what that effect can take on them, because you're in go mode, you're in work mode, you're in let's get this shit done mode. And that's what I found myself in a lot. And so it really took me stepping away from my previous gig, and taking some time to not only let my body, reset, start to rest, get over it, but it took weeks. It took literally weeks for me to start feeling like myself again. And that's wild, because as it's happening, you're like, oh no, this is my life. This is the way that I feel. When in actuality, the adrenaline's kicking, the dopamine, all of it, it's a lot. So there's a number of things that we could talk about, but there's five things that really kind of stuck out to me as far as things that I've learned over this past experience that I just wanted to share with the rest of you. Again, just in hopes that if there's somebody that can relate to at least one thing that I'm talking about, it gives what I've been through a little bit more purpose. The first thing that I really had to take a look at was my inability to uh, create an environment for effective downtime. And what I mean by that is when you're working in an industry like the live entertainment industry, it just happens. Things are going on. The show doesn't stop for anybody, and it's a really exciting atmosphere. And we can tend to just start rolling, and keep going with it until it's taken care of. That mixed together with the fact that I really like to accomplish things that I set out to do, it really took its effect in terms of keeping that part of me fulfilled, where Even if I was to work 13, 14 days in a row and finally have 2 days off, well, the first day is spent sleeping, maybe putting in a load of laundry, but for the most part, the first day is usually always rest, or should I say, complete exhaustion. And then the next day, I'd have all these goals and aspirations. I'm going to go for a hike. I'm going to go shoot photography. I'm going to go do all these things. I'm going to go visit friends and family. And then by the time that day rolls around, what you realize is, well, tomorrow I'm back to it. Are my orders placed? Are all my menus written? Is everything done that I need to do? Am I going to hose myself this week if I indeed walk away from everything today and close the computer? So, whatever happens through the course of time is you start to realize, or should I say, I start to realize that unless I'm making sure that I'm setting myself up for success when I do go back, I begin to almost be unable to enjoy that present moment of having that Sunday or having that second day off or third day off, because I know that I need to pretty much set myself up for when I do go back. The importance of being able to actually step away, you know, get off the grid, turn the phone off, whatever, and just remind yourself that, the world's going to keep spinning. Everything's going to be okay. But unless you're able to actually step away, not just technically not being at work, but allow your mind and your body to be able to feel away from that situation where the adrenaline's being induced and all that, crazy chaos that we seem to chase sometimes. Um, Without that, you end up going back less than 100%. And if that just becomes a cycle, obviously you can tell where that goes. The second thing that I realized really affected me in this previous pattern, I guess, that reformed, I deal with a lot with self expectations. And, it's probably a whole nother rabbit hole, probably a whole nother video on its own of where that comes from, or probably need to involve a therapist with that. But when it comes to my self expectations, I feel like it's kind of a double edged sword. It is something that can keep me absolutely sharp to the point where I am hyper aware of the things that I've dealt with over the years. And therefore, I know that I can get the job done to the best of my ability. And at this point in my career, I'm confident in what I can accomplish. But at the same time, I can almost take all that experience and all my successes and still feel like if I don't do this one the best, that's going to be what makes or breaks me. That's going to be my legacy. That's going to be what people are going to remember me for, and that sort of thing. I almost create this like self-critical sort of thing where I kind of question myself like, okay, cool. Like you have a day off. This is your second day off in 20 days. Should I spend half the day at least making sure that everything's in order? Should I make sure that I'm not leaving myself to wish I had done more on my day off and that sort of thing? And so when it comes to my expectations of myself, and if I'm talking to a friend who's in the exact same position I'm in, like let's just say verbatim, I can look at them and say, dude, you need to walk away. You need to step away. You need to take care of yourself. But like with much of life's advice, it sounds different when you are saying it outwards, or it is different when you are seeing somebody dealing with it, because it's different when it's us, right? One of the things I heard recently was self-parenting, and it was a term that really stuck with me because I realized that, when you're growing up, you have these adults that are looking out for you. And as you get older, you become the adult, but at the same time, you don't necessarily treat yourself or care for yourself in that same manner, making sure that you're well taken care of. Sometimes we can actually, put ourselves on the back burner just to make sure that everything around us is done. And that kind of leads to the third topic that I wanted to have on the list here, and that is people pleasing. And that is something that I have been guilty of for years. Didn't always realize it, didn't notice how it really affected me. I think it's something that can be disguised as just, being a good person, being a nice, caring person. And let me make sure that I am, being polite and respectful and wanting to impress people and that sort of thing, which is all fine to an extent. But when you mix that into certain personality types, like me, is you begin to internalize the consequence of not doing those things. Of, well, what if I don't, put in a few hours of my day off? Or what if I don't make this the best event that we've ever done, or let's make sure that this is the best show that we've ever had. And if I let these people down, this is going to be the thing that's going to take the forefront over all the other successes. Because I can't tell you with any sort of certainty how many times I've dealt with an event, a show, an artist, whatever, where I thought, oh my God, this is going to be the one that breaks me. The oven's not working. Oh my God, 2 cooks didn't show up. Oh my God, the order of 6 pallets went to the wrong venue. I can tell you that somehow I have survived every single event, show, whatever that I've ever faced. Did it go easy? Did it go as planned? No. But at the end of the day, as a professional, my job isn't necessarily just to make sure that the food is cooked well. It's to make sure that everything is completed to the point where whatever client it is, whatever artists we're doing a show for, um, has the experience that they deserve and that they expect from us. And so there's so many people that I've had to please. And that's what really can start to get to me, because what I had to do is I had to take a look around, okay, where is this actually about them and their happiness? Or where is this about me, my ego, and making sure that I was seen in the highest regards by them? So much so that I would push myself at times to the point where I'm becoming physically exhausted. I'm not able to do the things that I enjoy, the photography, the traveling, the spending time with friends and family. I'm unable to do all of that because I'm so concerned about making sure that these people are happy, pushing so hard that I'm putting myself on the back burner. Because at the end of the day, is that really about them? Or is that about how I feel, knowing that I'm viewed like that? So the people pleasing really kind of put me into a mirror and taking a look back on myself to kind of say, hey, you know what? If I can check my motive on something and I can do it and know I'm doing it for the right reason, I cannot be tied to the expectation of other people. And I cannot let their approval or disapproval matter in terms of the effort that I'm giving. One other observation I had around the people pleasing topic is that I became really aware over my sensitivity in regards of the praise and judgment that I would be getting from people, or basically just feel whether or not it was real or not, in terms of the congratulations and attaboys and the accomplishments and how amazing everything is, which really, fed into that idea of success, which also I believe put me on such highs that, what my experience has shown me is the higher the highs, the lower the lows. So when you don't get those pat on the backs, it can almost come across as a negative. Or if you don't hear positive feedback, or you hear critique, or you hear that somebody's unhappy, uh, those things can kind of really build up and get to you as well. Because if you go to a restaurant 10 times and 9 times out of 10, it's amazing, well, that's what you paid for. That's what you're going out to receive. So people don't necessarily talk about that as much, but you go once and it's fucked up, that news is going to spread like wildfire. I'm aware of it. That's been my experience. So when I know that things don't go right, or when I know that there's been a problem, uh, I can feel such a way inside that going into the next situation, I want to do whatever I can to make sure that that feeling does not come along. When I don't even know that that's going to happen, it's affected me to the point where I'm stressing out over something that may or may not even come to fruition. So, when it comes to the people pleasing and when it comes to the praise and the judgment, the thing that I need to remember first and foremost is, again, did I do the best job that I know I can? And beyond that, I cannot be attached to whatever outcome there is, because I can only do what I can do. The fourth topic that I really dealt with in burnout is sort of an obvious one. Um, Although when I first started thinking about it, it wasn't at the top of the list. And without it, nothing else matters. And that's my health. When I left my previous job, I actually, I'd say, probably went a couple weeks until I was able to really feel like I didn't have some work that needed to be done. And it was maybe a week or two longer, close to almost a full month before I stopped having headaches. And, I think we can all joke around sometimes. Oh, you're giving me a headache. Oh, I have a headache. Oh, I literally had a headache for about the last 2 months of as hard as we were pushing. And that's not to say that it was only 2 months, but it was about 2 months straight where I had some form of headache for a majority of the time. And then before then, it was on and off. And when I look at that, and when I think about the sleep patterns, the way that I dealt with my stress, the outside factors, when you get so busy, you can actually get to a point where you're in such a rhythm, and between work, eating, sleeping, trying to take care of your errands and your responsibilities, the things that have really proven to be of most benefit of you can start just falling off. Your daily routines can start shortening. The times where you sit quietly with your cup of coffee can diminish. Your time sitting in traffic and trying to think that that's my me time can start sounding like, well, this is better than the chaos of being in the middle of work, so I'm going to enjoy this time sitting on the freeway. um, and those sort of things, kind of like thinking that working an 18-hour day is a replacement for going on an hour-long hike out in nature and walking 2 miles. um, the thought process starts changing. Your ability to be able to see clearly and say, hey, you know what, whatever I need to do, I need to take a time out. I need to prioritize making sure that I've drank water, make sure that I've eaten meals, make sure that I actually maybe sit down while I'm eating a meal or use a fork and don't eat over a trash can like we do sometimes when we're in a hurry. Only some of you will get that. We all sort of bounce what can almost be deemed as a sort of a negative outlook on what we do. It's sort of amazing. And again, not all of you are going to understand this, but when we're all kind of griping at each other of like, oh God, oh, I remember my first 18-hour day, and we're all talking about how much we're working, and oh, I don't have another day off for another 32 days and that sort of thing. Um, it can seem really relatable. And I think what can happen is in the back of your mind, you can start to think like, oh, well, I've only worked 7 days in a row, so, I don't have much to bitch about. But if you talk to somebody that works a normal job and you talk about how you just worked 13 days in a row and you don't have another day off for another 7 days, and those days are not 8-hour days, those days are actually minimum 12 to 14 hours, more like 17 or 18. The look that they give you kind of reminds you that something that you're doing is out of the ordinary. And what I'm so used to is, for years and years of touring with artists on the road, is we would do a 7, 8 week tour, and I'd come home for a few weeks, maybe a month or two, and then you might go back out again, or you might start doing some events, closer to home or whatever. But it was a big push and then a break. And what I found in this last job is that the breaks were few and far between. We would just push, but you still have that mentality of like, okay, well, I can still get to the end as long as I can see that next calendar day that I have off. I can push to that. But in doing so, what's happening on the other end of that day off? Well, that's building up. And that goes back to what I was saying, where you all of a sudden have 1, 2, 3, maybe 4 days off. And instead of being able to fully embrace, hey, day off number one, let me do something for a couple days. Day one is usually like, let me recover from getting my ass kicked, right? And then let me look at the fact that my laundry is spilling over. Let me look at the fact that, oh shit, my bills need to get paid and all the other fun stuff. That usually puts you into day two, where you start catching up on those things, and next thing you know, you're back to it. Um, and part of the biggest reason why I had to make the change in my last venture was the fact that 2024 to me had become a blur. I did some fun things away from work. I took part in a lot of really cool things with work. But for the most part, the year went by faster than I've ever had a year go by. And as I'm getting older, and as I'm fully aware that, this trajectory of life is only going one way, it was really important to me that I regain some sense of control over my time and the way in which my life is progressing. Um, which kind of leads to the fifth and last thing that I want to share on this video for now. And that is simply that work is not life. Work is a part of life. It's a very big part of life. And I think I'm definitely guilty of crossing that line and kind of blurring those lines with having a sense of your being so closely related to what you do for a living. Um, when I first got sober, I wondered if I'd be able to stay in the food business, and then I learned how to become, a chef that doesn't get loaded, and next thing you know, it was still kind of this ego thing with like I'm still a chef and now I'm a sober chef, and it wasn't until pandemic when I realized that my bulletproof line of work of feeding people was very much socially motivated, where when there is no social aspect, there is no catering or need for what I was doing. And so all of a sudden I was left with, well, okay, now I don't even have the chef thing. So it really caused me to, take a look inside and really figure out who I was. So I think that made a difference, going back into the kitchen, is just being able to remember that I'm so much more than my job and I'm so much more in my position. And I think that's what helped me have the permission to walk away when I felt that it was time, was to know that I was okay before that job. I will be okay after that job. And now I get to take a look and figure out what next, knowing that everything always works out, because it always has. And that's not disputable, because here I am talking about it. When I think about all these other things and how they all contribute to this last, fifth item of life, is just that now that I've had a moment to take some time and really reset and regroup, if I take a look at what I've done over the past few years, I'm so proud of myself for the accomplishments. And I'm so grateful to have been surrounded by such an amazing team that allowed me the opportunity to do the things that we did. And those are memories that will never be taken away. And that's one thing I love about being able to, take photos and take videos and just remember all these things and hold on to some of the menus and some of the, laminates and work passes and those sort of things. But at the end of the day, here I am without that job. And here I am not knowing yet what next. But what I do know is that, in a stark contrast to how I felt at this point a couple months ago, is I'm back to feeling more like myself. And that's something that I'm taking time to look at and sit with, knowing that whatever comes next, as long as I can learn something from my previous experience, it'll make the next experience that much more powerful and that much more successful. So again, I appreciate it if you've made it to this point of the video and you've actually sat with me long enough to hear these things that I'm sharing. I definitely appreciate it. This is not the most fun topic. Trust me, I'd much rather be telling you about some food I ate in a foreign country or whatnot. But this is definitely something that I feel is important. And so for me to finally get on here, put my cup of coffee down and go sit your happy ass in front of that screen and share your experience, I thank you. From the bottom of my heart, I thank you. And as much as I hope that you cannot relate to any of this because it doesn't affect you in any way, and good for you. But for those people that may understand, or maybe even just have a hint that one of the things I talked about might be something that you deal with, feel free to share in the comments if there's anything that you want to share with me. Otherwise, I definitely thank you for your support. And who knows, maybe this will be one of multiple videos. Peace.